Good morning, Year 11. I hope you're all well and having a lovely day. Okay, so before we get started, as promised on class charts, I'm going to go through what's going to be happening with regards to the Zoom lessons. So bear in mind, before I start telling you about this, it is all subject to change. So I'm going to tell you what I believe will be happening based on the information that I've currently received. As you may have worked out, things are changing all the time in lockdown. So what I tell you now, I may have to update later, but this is what's happening at the moment. So in terms of how we're approaching Zoom lessons, this will vary by department. So I just had my department meeting today where we were told about the approach that the English department is taking. So let's say the science department take a different approach. It doesn't mean that they're wrong, it just means that they're doing something different potentially. So with regards to what we're going to be doing, whenever we have a tri-weekly, that's when we're going to have a live lesson following that, going through the tri-weekly. There'll only be one per week. So for instance, we did language and literature tri-weeklies this week. I'm not going to be doing a live lesson for language. I'm just going to be doing one for literature because the language one was easier, and having looked at all your answers already, I can tell that you did really well. You don't need a lot of guidance, and I think it's unlikely we would spend an entire lesson on feedback for that particular tri-weekly assessment. So that's why I've chosen for next week to have a literature response lesson. So in terms of how that will work, I dare say you've been sent some information already, but just to kind of recap it from my perspective, I will be sending you the link. I will try, with regards to future lessons, whenever this happens, to give you about a week's warning, but that may not always be possible. But as of next lesson, the next one we have will be on Thursday. So next Thursday, next literature lesson after this one is going to be a live Zoom lesson. So I'll send you the link, and we've been given no discretion with regards to the timing. It will have to take place at your regular lesson time, which is, I know, not the best if you're like me, a bit of a night owl, because all your lessons I noticed are in the morning. So I will use my best endeavours to try and avoid period 1 lessons. We have a couple of those, and for your sake and my sake, I don't think anyone except a couple of you early birds I know exist. Most people wouldn't want to be up for 9:20 and logging in, so where possible, I'll try and use the period 2 and 3 lessons instead. They're a bit later, but I suppose you are lucky in a sense that we have to do our regular lesson slots, because otherwise I'd probably choose a time like 9 o'clock at night or something, maybe not that late, but later in the day. Like I said, being someone who kind of gets up later, stays up later, but they have to be regular lesson times. So the Thursday lesson next week would be 10:20. I'll send you a link. I won't recap every bit of information because you'll get that sent to you. But the key points are you've got to have your cameras turned off. You may be pleased to know that it's optional whether we have our cameras on or off. So it won't be a double punishment, tri-weekly and having to look at me for an hour. I will have my camera turned off. So you don't have to look at me, you just have to listen to me as I go through the feedback tasks and the feedback from the tri-weekly. And to reiterate what I mentioned before, you won't get individual feedback, but you get class feedback, and I'll show you examples of model answers, people who did really well, and also some less good answers, obviously anonymised, and talking through ways that they could be improved. So hopefully it will be a helpful lesson. You'll be able to talk in the lesson through audio or through messaging me. There'll be a chat function enabled, and please do make sure that you do try and come. So obviously we're not going to penalise you or give you a behaviour point if you can't come for a good reason. However, it's going to take me many hours to work out how to use Zoom, so it'd be really disappointing if most of you don't attend. Like, I'm technologically not the most competent, so it's going to take a lot of effort to get this up and working. And there could even be some entertaining moments where everything goes wrong, but hopefully not. So that will be, like I said, next Thursday, Zoom lesson, and there'll be every 3 weeks, I believe. Yeah, for your tri-weeklies, every 3 weeks, you'll get one response lesson. That may change, but if it does, I will keep you updated. Okay, I think that's everything I need to say about the Zoom lessons. If I've missed anything, or if there's any information that I assume you have but you don't, do get in touch. Like I always say, I'm here to help you, so any questions at all, do let me know. Okay, so moving on to today's Tri-Weekly. Please can you write the date and the title, Jacqueline Hyde Spring Tri-Weekly 1. For your do now, I've got two parts. First, could you write out the success criteria for the question? And second, please could you write out the steps that you should follow when planning your answer? Pause the video for about 5 to 10 minutes to do that now. Okay, so I've got the success criteria on the slide for you. You need quotes, language analysis, terminology, structure analysis, reader response, context, personal response, and critical style. So make sure you have all of those written down, please. Okay, so I've got a step-by-step for you. First, you need to read the question and highlight or underline keywords. Then you read the extract and highlight or annotate the parts that would enable you to answer the question and analyse language and structure. Then you would choose another moment or moments that would enable you to answer the question and analyse language and structure as well. So ideally you want 2 moments elsewhere in the text. And finally, optional, which I would really strongly advise you do, write out the codes for the mark scheme to help keep you on track. So LSTQRRPRCTX. So if you have them, it'll be really helpful because then you might notice, for instance, you haven't talked about the reader or you haven't talked about context. So I would think it'd be really helpful if you wrote those out. And for today's Tri-Weekly, I am going to insist that you write them out and then tick them off as you use them. So pause the video to make sure you have those steps written out. Okay, and final tips. So I'd like you to review your planning from the lesson entitled Planning a Jacqueline Hyde Essay. So you may recall I had said in that lesson that you'd be writing the essay up. The reason I changed my mind is because we were then told we had to do Tri-Weeklies, and this week's Tri-Weekly was so similar to that particular essay that I thought there'd be no benefit in writing that one up and then going straight onto this Tri-Weekly. So I think it'd be really worth your while looking back at your planning because I won't tell you which bits, but some bits are transferable to your current Tri-Weekly. So look back at that, please. Also, if you have your previous books from last year, you may want to look over previous Jacqueline Hyde Tri-Weeklies and review the feedback you got so as to improve on this Tri-Weekly. So pause the video, please, to do that now. Okay, so these are your instructions for today's Tri-Weekly. Set a timer for 50 minutes. I want you to get into the habit of doing timed essays because, as it's been clearly established now, you will be doing some sort of assessment on your return to school, be it internal, be it external, but whatever assessment you do, it will be heavily weighted because it will be your final assessment. So it's really important because if you've spent, 2 hours on this and you spend 2 hours on all your Tri-Weeklies, then you go back into timed conditions, you're really going to struggle with doing it in time conditions. So you're penalising yourself essentially. That's why I do want to set you a timer. I want you to set yourself a timer and be really strict with yourself. When you've got 5 minutes left, that really does mean 5 minutes. When it goes off, you have to put your pen down. Obviously, I can't monitor this, but you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you gave yourself a lot of extra time because it wouldn't mimic exam conditions, and then when you go back into them in the summer term or earlier, depending on when we go back, you'll be at a disadvantage. Secondly, I would hope for you to be able to do this closed book, so that means without using your text, but you can use it if you're struggling. Can you please write at the top of your answer closed book if you didn't open your text, or open book if you did? I'm not going to, obviously I'm not marking them actually, so it doesn't make a difference, but I think it'd be better, if you're aiming for the higher marks especially, I would really advise you challenging on yourself and doing it closed book, because that will help you to identify areas for development, maybe some key scenes you need to go back over, but like I said, you've got both options available to you. Next, please you type your Tri-Weekly up on a computer. If you're a really slow typer, and be honest about this, then you can give yourself slightly more time. Conversely, if you think you're a really fast typer and you type much faster than you can write, that would be me, give yourself maybe slightly less time because you're writing more quickly. So if I was doing this Tri-Weekly, I would probably give myself 40 minutes maybe 42 or something, because I type significantly quicker than I write. Not because I'm a really, really fast typer, because I write so slowly. So think about how you might want to adjust it. But like I said, I do need you to type it up if possible, because that will just make it easier. It's really a struggle to read some of the photos of your handwriting, and I can't give you the best feedback if I can't read it. So that's why we are typing up the tri-weeklies. I would like you to write your plan at the top of your tri-weekly. So again, that will help me understand why you did what you did, and it will help me understand if we need to reflect on planning. I would like you to upload your highlighted and annotated extract, so you can tell a really good answer, or what will be a good answer, from the annotations on the text and from a plan. So that's why, again, it's really helpful for me if you upload both, then I can see maybe how to help you going forward in that respect. Final thing, could you please write a what went well and even better if at the bottom of your answer? So after you've finished your time, the 50 minutes, I'd like you to reread it, think about what you think was a particular strength and what you think could have gone better. And so that is the end of the instructions. Please pause the video now to complete your tri-weekly. Okay, so that is the end of today's lesson. Thank you very much for your hard work. Like I always say, if you've got any questions at all about the upcoming Zoom lesson, or about this tri-weekly, or English in general, any questions at all, do let me know. Get in touch. I'm always happy to hear from you. And that's the end of today's lesson. So have a delightful weekend, and I will speak to you again on Tuesday.